So, we got a special guest speaker here tonight, and it's not you, Josh. He's going to talk a little bit about his comics and his story on how he got to where he's going, and he's going to talk about the future of his comics and what he's going to do in the future. And so, before I tell you everything that's on the slides, Kate Hawkins.
Oh, that was very eloquent. Thank you. This is very eloquent. Hi, I'm Kate. Some of you have already met me. I know you. I kind of know you and kind of know you guys. Oh, that's me. I'm 18. I started publishing in January 2016, but I started cartooning in 2010. I'm not super established yet. I'm just getting started. Like I said, publishing since January. That's not that long ago. But for what I do have, I'm confident that it's going somewhere. I'm confident that we're going to be making more comics and that soon it might grow into something bigger. Okay, so I'm homeschooled. I'm a born-again Christian. Been for 13 years. I love to make people laugh. That's what I've always wanted to do, is just make people laugh, entertain them. And I want to keep the entertainment clean. You know, so many things out there are filled with swear words, filled with, what was the word for it? It's vulgar material. I don't want anything like that. I want to entertain with clean material for all ages. That's why I started doing this, really, is to entertain everyone with clean material. This is my good friend, Wade. Wade is a quirky, I'm just going to tell you the little definition here. Wade is a quirky 12-year-old boy growing up with a strange family, Sam, his older brother, and their mom and dad. It's a slice of life-esque comic strip. You know what that means? Obviously, it's pretty easy to get. Just like his day-to-day activities, and sometimes I don't really follow a timeline with Wade. I kind of go all over the place. Like, he could be at school one day, he could be at a summer break the next day. It doesn't really matter. It's just trying to follow his life and those activities. I publish them every Monday and Thursday right now on tapastic.com. You can find them there, tapastic.com. But I'm thinking of changing that. I had this little thing I came up with called Wade Wednesdays. And that would be like every Wednesday, I'm going to publish those two comic strips that I normally publish on Monday and Thursday. So instead of being at the beginning and end of the week, you can look forward to reading two brand new comics in the middle. I think that's what I'm going to start doing, starting with the next one. But normally, it would be Monday and Thursday. So today we have a brand new comic strip out called Roll Call. You can go and find that right now if you want to. It's there. Now I'm going to go into the cast of Wade and tell you a little bit about each character. These are kind of just my highlights of what I like about each character. There's still room on the cast list. There's plenty of room, actually, because I said I just got started. But there are some characters that are pretty well established. You've already met Wade. He is 12, and he loves cake. He's not entirely based on myself, but a lot of him has my personality. I try to put a little bit of myself into each of the characters, and he is sort of like a younger version of myself, whereas in his brother is more of an older version of myself. And he is 13, so it's just 1 year older, but he likes to think in his mind that he is the more superior brother because he's that year older. Even though it's only a year, that's how he treats Wade, as though he's beneath him. Moving on, we have Mr. Matthews. Now this is kind of funny. I don't know if you're going to notice this, but this has been changed. I forgot to draw him with the eyebrows. Online, that's been fixed. We had a whole story about that, didn't we, Travis? Oh, yeah. Mr. Matthews is out of touch with this generation. He's trying to use hashtags and stuff like that, and he doesn't really know how they work. That's a little bit like my dad. He doesn't like hashtags, my dad. He doesn't like any of that, so I tried to keep that. My dad also loves chips, and I believe he keeps changing his favorite color, but I believe it was green. So I tried to keep a lot of my dad in this because that's the only dad I've ever had. I know how to relate to him. I know how I can put that personality into the comic. But I don't want to keep my characters exactly like my family or exactly like people I know. I want to give them their own little personality. That's why I said Wade is not entirely like me, because they are all different in some ways. Like, he still has a mustache. My dad no longer has a mustache, and he treats this like a member of the family. Pretty much the biggest wad of hair a face can grow. Moving on. This is Charlie. And coincidentally, I also have a cat named Charlie. Coincidentally. Charlie is Wade's cat, and he was found on a farm. Brought home, and he's pretty much just a lazy cat. That's about his whole role. But he's kind of like Garfield is to John, where, you know, like the Garfield comics, where Garfield's always like complaining about everything, and so with Charlie's a lot like that. I try to get a lot of my inspiration from Charlie like that. He formed a bond with Wade, but you'll see him consistently thinking in his thought bubbles that Wade is not really above him, that he's just the guy that feeds him. So, Mrs. Matthews. Well, I'll make little backstory things about each character, and on hers it says age leaves to be unimportant. Sorry. She's always on her phone, and that's a lot like my mom. She's usually on social media. But, like I said, not every character is completely based after my family or people that I know. She has some similarities to my mother, but she is also in some ways not at all like my mother. Like, she's always wanted the spotlight on her, and she wants that for her children. So I put in here that she does love her children and care for them, of course, but it's just that she's also molding them and preparing them for the spotlight. So even though that's sort of like her little secret thing, it's really not a secret at all. Everybody knows it. Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the beginning of Wade, how it all started. Over here we have a lot of my beginnings, my comic strips that I drew growing up. These were all in colored pencils. But I decided that is not what I want to publish. Colored pencils, it's just not good enough for syndication, like newspapers and stuff like that. And at the time I did want to put it on a newspaper, and if I couldn't do that, then I would go digital. Eventually, I got around to drawing them with just pencils and pens. Just pen them out and then scan them in. But I'm going to tell you about the bullet points. Okay. Wade started as a bedtime story when I was, I guess I've been told it's a couple different ages, but when I was like 2, they started telling me stories about a character that was a lot like me, that instead of having a C in the front of his name had a W. So they try to do it like it's a little alternate reality story of myself. But I've obviously evolved it into something a little bit different. He has an entirely different life than I do. I have 2 sisters, he has 1 brother. It's completely different, but in a way it has retained a lot of what I was taught in those stories. I'll tell you that in a minute. When I got into cartooning, I used to watch this VHS tape, like at least once every day, sometimes twice, just to get the hand of drawing their heads and faces. And that's how I always start. I always start with their heads going up like that. But couldn't find it. Nobody uses those anymore. God gave me the chance to draw a comic for 4-H. I was once a part of 4-H, and I heard that they were wanting a comic submitted. You know, they wanted different categories, and they had one for cartooning. And so that's when I basically started drawing Wade for the first time, really. I drew him with shaggy hair, completely different than he is now. He has now this poofy kind of curl going out. You can see this pretty common. All the characters are pretty much known for their hair. But now he has that. He used to have these strings kind of going out. And he, in that comic strip, befriended a burrito. Completely different concept than I have now, although he still has that problem where he's trying to make friends. Soon after, I spent a while drawing comics with colored pencils. Like I said, I drew them, I tried to get them published, but they weren't good enough. I drew a drawing of Wade and stuff like that every year. You see over here, there's a couple different dates. There's one that's in 2013, 2014, 2012. Those are throughout the years. I'll try and go back and see if I got the knack for it. And every time before now, I was not satisfied with the way he looked, with the way the characters were drawn, with everything. It just didn't look right. But eventually, God brought another thing into my life. I went to hear a man, kind of like you are now hearing me talk about how he writes for a comic book. And that sort of inspired me to get going again. I kept drawing Wade. In January of 2016, I published the first Wade comic. Starry Night was published on January 8th, 2016. I believe this is in the wrong place, but this is my continual inspiration. Like I'm inspired by everyday life, but I'm also inspired by the comics I read. I read Garfield, I read a lot of Peanuts. And Peanuts, it keeps it kid-friendly, it keeps it this type of tone that I want to maintain myself. And I want to keep that tone because I think it is relatable to everyone, and at the same time, it's not going to be offensive, it's going to be clean for all ages too. So I take a lot of that from Peanuts. This is Starry Night. This was the first comic published. I have a hard copy here. You can pass this around. Pass it that way and then back. That was the first one published. And that's also the first comic I've ever had printed. I don't really want to do a lot of printing, mainly because ink is costly. But another thing is that they're already published for everyone to view, so there's really no need to go and print them all right now. Eventually we might go ahead and print up a booklet of them, but that's just consideration for the future. Now we're going to hand out the comics. Yeah, you all get a set. These are black and white. We do have a color copy, but we thought it might be unfair considering that we were printing these in black and white to give one person a colored copy and everybody else black and white just for the copy. Now, this is kind of why you're all here.
You can do it. Don't let your dreams become dreams. Just do it. You should probably put that on.
How to become a cartoonist. Okay, so I really don't know everything about becoming a cartoonist. That's really up to you, whether or not you want to be a cartoonist. But there's a few things you should know. First, nobody gets started in this business for the money. You don't make anything. you gotta really want to draw. You can't get started in it if you want to make money. That's not how you start. You want to start because you want to draw. When you get started drawing, you have to want that, not look for the dollar signs. Secondly, all you really need is a few things. God, I couldn't have gotten here today without God. Imagination, mine never shuts off, it's kind of annoying. Writing utensils, I've got more than I can count. Over there you can see I have Sharpies. I only use Sharpies for outlining and for the windows, the panels. I use these. I didn't start with these. When I started, I just used a ruler. But these are what I use to make my panels now. It can be multiple sizes. These are just note cards I've cut into the right shapes. And you can see all the black around, and that's how I make the outlines of the boxes that they go in, and those are called panels. But I only use Sharpie pens and markers for that because Sharpie pens, they don't bleed through. They have a good black coating, so it's going to be dark around your characters. They're going to be easy to make out. So when you're scanning them in, they're more visible than you would if you just scanned in your pencil drawing. Of course, you got to ink it. But those are the utensils I use. I use also a kneaded eraser. You don't want to use anything like rubber. You don't use that because that will leave a lot of pencil lines and pencil marks, eraser marks when you're scanning them in. If you do it that way, that's how I do it. Time, that's the last thing you need, but I don't have much of that. And whatever I have, I will make count. And what I mean is, with everything you do that you want to succeed, you need to put a lot of time into it. You have to take your time with every drawing. You have to take your time with everything you publish. If you don't, it's going to flop. I've done it like that. I've done it where I've put out material that has not had a lot of time put into it, and it's always flopped. So give it your all, and know it's going to succeed even if you don't believe it at first. You have to know that you're going to succeed. You have to have that confidence. If you don't, you're going to fail. Next. Thank you. Okay, my tech and my process. If you're planning on uploading your comics like me to like Tabastic or Service, here's what you want to know, or should know. Sorry. If you're scanning in your comics to your PC, then you have to make sure to set the default to black and white on the scanner. There should be a program. HP has HP print and scan, fax and scan. You have to set that default as black and white because it will show up in gray and it will be awful if you don't. It will reduce eraser pencil lines for later removal. So I edit all my comics later on and erase those. I draw my comics by hand first without color, and then I scan them in via the scanner on a standard printer. I edit the comics using a free software that's like Photoshop called GIMP. For GIMP. Yes, GIMP is free. It's easy to find on the web. It's a great software. It's a lot like Photoshop. So if you use Photoshop, then you should know how to use it. I use that for erasing pencil lines, and after I do that, I use it also to color in everything. A big part of editing is making the panels straight and square. So if your panels are not straight, you can align them better in that software, and then you can make a dark, thick line for a border going around it. That will help with later on in publishing. A lot of the panels I draw end up crooked, so that's why that's important, at least for me. I use note cards, like I said, cut to size to make the panel outlines. But the fixing happens. It happens on the PC a lot. You need to be prepared to fix any mistakes you make before you go out and publish it. I've learned the hard way. I forgot about that. I learned the hard way because I once published something with a misspell in it, and it was caught later on, and I had to go back and fix it. But that's sort of what I'm trying to say, is that you have to make sure everything is ready before you go out and publish it, because if you don't, you're going to end up having to go and fix it later on. This is a part where you can subscribe to Wade. I have my friend here, Travis, bring around a tablet that I brought with me. Today there's a brand new comic on Tabastic of Wade called Roll Call. I haven't published this today yet. And so it is what it's called, Roll Call, if you want it signed. Are you on back to the first? Certificate of Appreciation in honor of your outstanding performance and dedication. We gladly present this to Kate H. Hawkins for your performance and excellence in presenting to Marlette Corps.
Yeah. That was nice.
Thank you.
Now hold it, smile.